Hello, welcome to our third episode of the DMV Autocross Podcast. I'm Danny Kao.
I'm Atta Tabesh. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's deep of the winter, and our next racing event is not for another week. Since we have no events to report and no event weather to forecast, we adjusted our format with a special segment for this episode. It is my pleasure to introduce you Brian Garfield of the Washington, D.C. SCCA Autocross School. Brian has been a part of the school as long as I've been autocrossing, and he's here to tell us all about it. Thank you, Brian, for joining us.
I'm glad to be here. Hi, guys.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I think I know Brian for too long, so I'm going to be totally informal.
Oh, yes, it's Brian.
I think you both have known me long enough. So
Ada, have you been in any school?
I have. One of the first events I ever did autocrossing was a school that Brian put on, and I had the most handsome instructor ever. His name was Greg Obadia. And with the guidance, the masterful guidance of Brian and Greg, I've turned into the fantastic autocrosser you see before you.
Wow.
now, which lot was that on, Atta?
It was one of the FedEx lots that we did not use recently. So it was like...
was it the small one, the H lot?
H.
Possibly H.
Yeah, we did a lot of schools on the H lot when we transitioned to the to FedEx Field at first. That's where we did schools. Mm-hmm. It was a smaller lot, similar to lots that we had done schools on in the past. But we were allowed to paint the course on that lot, so that made it really easy to set up. We were set up in about 10 minutes every time we went there. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
So me too. You know, like one of my first autocross events, I went to the school and guess who my instructor was? It was Brian Garfield.
Was he your actual instructor?
He was, and then he rode with me for like 5 minutes, and he said I had no hope, and then I went to somebody else. Then Mike Neri was my instructor. But
nice.
But here's the thing. So, you know, they confused me so bad that I had to return back like 16 more times. So I'm definitely the one that I tend to scoot the most.
Danny was definitely, I think for at least at that time period, you were by far and away the most studious of students for those schools. I think I brought your name up almost every school as somebody was here again. So I know you did a lot of them.
Yeah. I remember one year we had 8 schools. I was a student for all 8 of them.
Yeah.
We had a lot of school.
We had some, a few years when we were doing weekday schools where we did anywhere between 16 and 18 schools in a season. So there were times where we had a lot of schools in one season.
Oh yeah, no, that was definitely a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed that.
Yeah. And I don't know when I can't remember how far back it's been now, but I did stop teaching at a certain point because I was teaching and trying to run the schools from the right seat, and it was not the most comfortable feeling when something was going wrong or somebody was, from the facility wanted to talk to me and I'm sitting in the right seat of one of the students. So eventually I just became the director of the schools and hired instructors, obviously. But they started in 2002, the first schools, and they were at Frederick Keyes Stadium. Which was very inexpensive to rent. We were there before we acquired FedEx Field as a lot. We were autocrossing it at the Frederick Keyes Stadium, and so we had the contacts there. So initially, we wanted just a small lot to run the schools on, and that's where we started. And that was around 2002. Yeah.
Okay. That leads perfectly into my questions about when did it start. You've already answered it, and a little history about how it became the school it is today. So in Frederick, were you running it multiple times a year? Like, what happened? How did that grow?
So essentially, the quick background is that I joined the SCCA committee in 2000, and at that time, it was still, I want to say, 8 or 9 clubs in the area. We had a Metropolitan Washington Council of Sports Car Clubs. MWC SCC was the organization that was the whole of the entire region. And the SCCA at that time only had about 3 or 4 events a season, maybe 5. And then all the clubs had events. And then you actually ran in a series that was a combination of all the clubs. So you would compete for the entire series while running with Porsche Club, BMW Club, Saab Club, the SCCA. There was a couple of smaller clubs, I can't remember the names right now, but you ran for an overall championship. And so we had a lot of local events at the time. We had, I don't know, probably 25 local events back then, or something crazy like that. That's, of course, the combination of all the clubs. But anyway, I got on the committee, and I was on it for a year or two, and nobody had been doing any schools since I had gotten on. And at the time, they said, does anybody want to run the schools? And I said, well, I'll do it. And if I can be so blunt, I said, I'll do it, but I'm going to get paid for it, because I'm going to do it on my, my free time, and it's going to be a large program. It's not going to just be one school at the beginning of the year. And I said, I'm going to get paid for it by the region, and so is every instructor that's going to be there, and all the staff that's going to be there are going to get paid. And the reason I said that from the beginning was because I wanted to make sure that any instructor we had, we could keep. That they wanted to keep coming back more than just once. The norm for a lot of clubs, and even now, but it's certainly the club racing is to just do one school at the beginning of the season. And I knew that you weren't going to have enough room for all the people in one school, especially since we were starting off on Frederick. So we wanted to do kind of build a whole program. So myself and some of the early instructors, Lee Pacone, Brian Burdett, my father, Craig, I'm trying to think who else was involved initially, but there was a few of the original guard, if you will, from the SCCA and Autocrossers Inc. that were the first instructors. And the first schools, I think, were, I don't know, like $75 and $100, maybe not even that, maybe $50 and $75, and the school was, I think, 12 people for the level 2 and 15 or 16 for the level 1. So that's how it started at Frederick. That was the initial start.
Yeah, I remember my one of my early schools. My instructors were Brian Hare, and
Brian Hare was an early one,
and Greg Olson.
Yep, and wow. Greg Olson. Now, I didn't even meet Greg until a few years later after we had started the schools, but he came in and was quick pretty fast, and I essentially picked my instructors based on the fact that they needed to be able to be relatively fast in order to prove the techniques that we were teaching, and then also be able to drive different cars. But Greg was one of the early ones as well.
Yeah, and I remember Marshall Cohn was one of the earliest ones.
Marshall was early,
yep. Marshall.
Yep. And Marshall was he's been around, aside from a couple of names. I mean, Marshall Cohn's probably one of the longest standing members of the SCCA in the region, as well as all the other clubs that are involved. In fact, I think he was part of the Z-Car Club. The Datsun Z-Car Club was one of the car clubs that was in that Council of Sports Car Clubs when I first started, which was 1999. So not that long ago, long for a lot of people, but in the world of autocross in this area, that wasn't that long ago. So
yeah,
you're talking a quarter century, Brian.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to do everything I can to seem younger than I am.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, back in the 1900s.
So of course I attended enough schools that eventually, you and Craig, basically said, why don't you come in and, do become a starter or be safety and stuff. So I actually started working for the school, 2009, 2010 or something like that. Yep. And then I've been an instructor, after that. So it's been
all the way up until now. So
many
until
years
I just fired you.
But that's okay. That's how we fire Alan Claffey as a weatherman.
Oh my God.
So as an instructor for many years now, right? So I knew the format of the school, and it's very structured. Can you tell everybody what about our level 1 schools?
Sure.
What the day is like for level 1, and also what the day is like for level 2?
So when we started the schools, the whole point was to have something to get people started with that was not too scary. And then the next level would be where you really work on the skills, and that's what the level 2 was right away out of the box. And but the level 1 is essentially what I always describe as a get your feet wet kind of thing. It's to expose yourself to a format like an autocross, with the course set up, and then you're going to work, and you get to meet people and learn the positions, and that's going to make you feel a little bit better about attending your first larger event, especially when we were at FedEx Field at the time, which our events were huge. So I wanted to make sure that the school, the level 1 particularly, was small enough. And again, it was only, 14 or 16 people, to get people used to just being in that environment. And so that's essentially what the level one is. The level one is to get people, introduce people to instructors and to members of the autocross community that have been there a while, like the staff on the schools, and then we give people a joyride, get them exposed to what they're going to see when they're out there just for fun, and then we teach them anything from the work positions and safety and how to prepare yourself and walking the course and that. And then so that, shortly after you get through a lot of that stuff, you start your driving, and we do quite a bit of driving. Usually, it depends on the day, but usually somewhere between 16 and 18 runs on a full course. We used to do a lot more talking. When I first started the level one schools, we sat down and we talked for about 3 hours because we tried to squeeze in classing and car setup and things like that. And you quickly realize that everybody wasn't able to retain that, nor did they want to sit through all that time. So we try to keep things moving as quickly as possible and get that exposure to the course. And for some people, their instructors are already working on some skills, but there's no specific drills at the level one. It's just to get you out there with an instructor, driving around, and then we sort of cut the cord towards the end of the course to make sure you can follow the course on your own and maybe pick up a little bit of speed, with the intent of enticing you to come back to a level two where you're going to really learn the two main skills of autocrossing. So I'll just dovetail right into that, which is level two then works on two drills, and we did this. I mean, this started back in 2002. The original guys that I was mentioning helped develop the drills, but it came down to two simple drills, and that was a figure eight drill and a slalom drill. And the figure eight drill is to work on steady state turns, and the slalom drill is your transitions. And that's really what makes up an entire autocross course is steady state turns and transitions. I mean, every offset gate, every slalom gate is a transition, and every sweeping turn is, your steady state, or where you're gonna steer with the right foot, if you will, on and off the throttle to control it through the turns. So the level two, we work on those two drills, and then right after those two drills, we run a full course, and you basically get an opportunity to apply what you've learned on those two drills to a full course.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit. I was joking earlier about saying that I was a fantastic autocrosser. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who hasn't passed the level one school in the history of the
everybody autocross. Passes. Everybody passes the level one.
Well,
the level two now. Maybe you don't pass that one.
Okay. So go back and tell us some student success stories. Are there any great students that come to mind, became fast drivers, maybe went on to some regional or even national level autocrossers, or any hopeless students? Like, let's be real. Let's, expose them if you'd like. So it's your time.
So it's funny. You go back a bunch of years for the awards banquets, and there's one awards banquet. I want to say it would probably be around, like 03, 04, somewhere in there. And I'm standing in a picture with Greg Obadia and Jack. I can't think of his last name right now. Used to drive an Evo.
Brennan.
What is it?
Brennan? Jack Brennan?
Brennan.
Jack Brennan? Is that right? I can't remember now.
I thought so.
Yeah, that might be who it was, because you would know too. You had an Evo probably.
I never met Jack Brennan. He moved somewhere to Midwest.
Yeah, that's the right one. So it was Greg Obadia and Jack Brennan in a picture with me, and the reason they're in the picture with me is they had both attended schools the prior year, or maybe a couple of them the same year, and both of them won their regional championships that year.
Wow.
So that was sort of my first kind of success story, and then shortly, maybe a year or two later, Greg Obadia actually became an instructor with me. So
awesome.
So that would have been one of the early ones, but one of the most recent ones would a name that came up earlier already, which was Cody Hunt. And I don't know if I have the story exact, but I'm pretty sure Julian, my son, was actually Cody's first instructor at the schools. And of course now Cody is an instructor with us, and also is been pretty successful on the national scene. So I'm not taking credit for that at all. I'm just saying that I'm pretty sure he started with our region and our classes, and then became an instructor, and now he's a top national driver. So as far as ones that aren't successful, well, I don't remember them a whole lot because they usually don't take. Yeah, I'm not gonna mention names because I don't think I can call anybody that I still remember that comes out all the time as unsuccessful with autocross. But there's.
So you're admitting Danny and I are successful. You're
saying on
air.
I would say that I don't know about you, Atta, but Danny is Danny. I would consider Danny is. Danny has traveled the least amount for the most amount of time put in, but he has been successful. So
I don't know what that means, but I love it.
It just means it took him a really long time to get fast.
But he's fast.
Actually, Brian, you missed 3 most successful students.
Okay,
3.
Number one, of course, is me.
Yeah,
the most successful. Number 2, of course, is Ada.
Of course, yeah.
Right. Number 3 is Jackie Ding, the internet sensation, super duper time trialist.
Yeah, he came out. He came out for a school. I don't remember. I'm guessing it was a level 2 school. I can't recall, or maybe the weekend he was there for the level 1 and 2, probably, because a lot of people do them back to back, and I'm pretty sure he probably would have done that.
Yeah. So you know how the motor got exploded, right?
Right.
Which he made a video. So now his car, he's modifying his E86 now. Right.
Yeah.
With a K24 swap and the whole bits. Yeah.
Nice.
So
good choice.
So if you want to follow on what he's doing, what he's up to, and there we go.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right. Awesome. So just to wrap this up, can you tell us a little bit about the school schedule for this year?
Sure. So
and then when will registration be available?
April 6th and 7th. We always try to avoid March if we can because the weather can be unpredictable. Right. So we always try to get in the beginning of April or maybe the second weekend of April. So it's April 6th and 7th is a level 1 on the 6th and a level 2 on the 7th. And then we have a test and tune on April 20th. And those are the main ones that I push in the beginning. Because most people want to get out there and do a school before the season starts or relatively close to the beginning of the season. We've got a level 2 on May 11th. And then we have a level 1 and level 2 on July 13th and 14th in that order. So always level 1, level 2. And then I always try to squeeze in a test and tune sometimes shortly before nationals, which is historically the end of August, beginning of September. So we've got a test and tune on August 10th. So registration should be open somewhere around now. So make sure you get in there because they will fill fast. And then we try to get a level 2 in after we get through the first 3 because the level 2s are so popular. Right. So.
Can we cover just briefly what the test and tune is going to be like?
Sure. So the test and tune is a format we worked on for many years, but the general idea is just to get a lot of runs with an optional instructor, and it's 14 half-hour segments that are, and you pick which 4 you want to work, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And the rest of them are open for you to do whatever you want, whether you're tuning your car, whether you're driving, whether you're resting or going to get a bite to eat, doesn't matter, as long as they're not your work assignments. So that's how the test and tunes work. And, Danny has famously, I don't remember if we ever had the exact numbers, but I know we've been over 50 runs before. Even at FedEx Field, you had something in that range if you just run every time you get a chance. And not everybody chooses to do that. And not everybody has the tires for it because you will burn through a lot of tires. And that is important, by the way. Come into a test and tune, you need to make sure you have plenty of tire. Because if you don't, you're done. You cord the tires, it's over. So you want to make sure you got plenty of tire that can handle the whole day. Sometimes it's nice to even have it be a little damp in the morning to not burn through tires quite as quickly.
Yeah, I remember I took 50 plus runs and I burned up the whole set of like REO ones or something.
Right.
back in early days.
Nice. Right.
Yeah.
No, we've had lots of people go through their tires at a test and tune because it's a lot of runs. But yeah, I think the format works really well. It gives you a little bit of freedom to pick when you work. And guys like Brian Garfield actually tuned, like spend a lot of time tuning. Mm-hmm. So they can maybe ditch a half-hour session to do a complete suspension change of some sort that takes a little more time, or even some ECU tuning.
I'm pretty sure the sway bars are instantaneous. You can do those between runs. So.
Yes, that's true. That's about 30 seconds.
Yep. If that. Yep.
Yeah. Don't remember when Brian Carwin mentioned, adjusting sway bars, always use 9/16, not 14 millimeters.
Yeah. 100% 9/16. Yep.
Even though they're the same, but he will argue forever and tell you that
they're not the same.
Yeah.
They're not the same. He told me once in private.
12 point.
Yeah, there we go. No, that's awesome.
So, yeah. Well, thank you, Brian, so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I hope this gives everyone a very in-depth look at the DC Region Autocross School.
Great.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Brian. Yeah. Thank you. For our Meet a New Autocross Friend segment, I'm happy to introduce you to the person largely responsible for this podcast. He forced me and Ada to join the DMV Autocross Facebook group, as well as many other autocrossers into joining. So much so that there are now many beautiful young women who want to join the group, and our moderator, Josh, has to reject and ban them every day. Right? Here's our autocross friend to explain this phenomenon, Mike Brown.
Danny, you're talking about the scammers, right? With those pictures, profile pictures.
I don't know. Maybe they're all here because of Mike.
Okay.
They're not here because of me or you. I can tell you that much.
I feel like I invited a few people and it just started this snowball rolling, and suddenly there's 1,000 people in this group now. It's great.
Sure. Actually, Josh had to ban so many, and then it could be 2,000.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna assume they're all here because of Mike.
And all the pretty ladies.
Yeah, definitely not me.
Ladies.
Yeah, definitely not.
All the old guys are here because of you, Danny.
No. I know if Norm Flowers or Pat Gaffney is watching me, it's because of me, because they're really, really old. But
yeah, that's what I said. All the old guys are here because of you. Yeah.
They finally have somebody to bond with, like me.
Oh no, they're not old. They're seasoned.
They're seasoned. Okay.
Yeah, seasoned. Yeah. You know, it's a nice, better way of.
Well, they're seasoned. I think I'm done. I think that's.
You're not done. You're not done. You're like a medium well. You're a medium well.
Medium well. Okay. Fine. All right. Sorry, Mike.
Yep. Sorry. Hi, Mike. Welcome. So you are one of our closest autocross friends. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna get right into the Miata questions, right? Okay. You've owned a couple of Miatas. All right.
I have.
Right off the bat, what makes them stand out as an exceptional vehicle to you? Would you recommend them? Talk a little about Miatas real quick. This is on Autocross Podcast. Everyone knew it was coming. We just talked Miata.
All right. Well, I'll say the number one thing is just the balance and being rear-wheel drive, right? So if you see this car back here, this silver Jetta wagon is what I started autocrossing with. Did all kinds of things to make it handle better. And then I drove a Miata, and I was like, oh, my God, what am I doing? Wasting my time with this Jetta. So I bought a 2010 Miata, already set up for STR, which was kind of the class at the time. And I was just amazed at how well it handled, how well it turned, just how composed it felt at the limit, and the lack of understeer is a big thing. I think Danny mentioned something about the first thing he tries to do for cars is to make them turn, and the Miata just turns like right out of the box, and turns even better when you put coilovers and good suspension on there. So that's what's really appealing to me. And then, I've had a couple of Miatas, both have been the third gen, the NC Miata. And I think that just comes down to the sizing. Like, I'm not a tall guy, but I have like a tall torso. And the NC Miata has more room inside than the others. And it just fits me really well. And so I've had
kind of like that sweatshirt.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic. So, Mike, when I first met you, you were like me, a regular autocrosser who would show up and give thumbs up and smile and race around. Then I started noticing you wearing a red shirt, and I started noticing you volunteering a little bit. So can you tell a little bit about what led you to volunteering, and if that's a path that others can kind of get involved in if they want to?
Sure. It's definitely something that is available to anyone who's interested in helping out. Just come and talk to some of the staff at one of the events, drop me an email, drop Tom or Ryan an email. But I would say that really it was kind of a COVID thing, an after effect of COVID that got me involved, right? COVID was like that big reset. Everybody's schedule changed. Everybody had a blank slate to start from. And so autocross started picking back up, maybe more than some other activities, because we're all in our cars, right? We're outdoors. But I'm hearing from the staff, like they were doing some announcements, like, "Hey, we're looking for additional help. Anybody interested in helping out, come talk to us." And I was like, I've kind of got like a blank slate on my schedule. I could probably contribute some more time towards this. And I've had a lot of fun doing this the last 5 years. And I want to make sure it keeps going, right? It kind of seemed like things were getting a little tenuous, like with enough people helping out or not helping out. So I wanted to make sure things kept rolling. And so I stepped up, and like the first year, I was just helping out with tech inspections and doing, helping notify people of their work assignments and things like that. And then I made the mistake of volunteering to like be the worker chief, because I thought, oh yeah, I'll just be the person people come talk to, and I'll tell them where they go to do their work assignment. No, worker chief meant like assigning everyone, splitting the heats to make sure they're balanced. So it's a couple hours of work, like a couple days before the event, but it really helps things run smoothly. And it just comes back to like, I'm happy when other people are happy. And so when I see people out there having fun and we're running a smooth event and I had a little something to do with that, it feels good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks to people like yourself, thanks to you, thanks to people just like you across all the different organizations, people like me and Danny can just show up and have fun. So thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you to every volunteer for every organization. We know it's a hard job. It's hard to please everyone and keep these events rolling smoothly. So thank you, and thank everyone like you. And now on to the hard question. Okay, This is serious, real talk. Why do you have so much plastic on your car? And could you possibly add more? You have the most plastic of any car I've ever seen in my life. Ever.
Well, thank you for noticing, number one. I feel like it's a style choice, and not everyone appreciates it. But
I've seen you take on and off plastic before a run before. Like I've seen you take off plastic pieces from your car.
Yes.
Before a run.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you might notice there's plastic covers over the hood vents on my Miata, and that's really like a nice kind of like quality of life enhancement that the previous owner and design engineer came up with. I think he goes under a brand name Chaoseps.
Chaoseps, okay, that's
but
unfortunate.
Yeah, he did that to make sure that the car was comfortable to drive on the road,
That's right.
to and from events.
And it's
keep
modular, like
spoils
you
out.
could detach it at will.
Yeah, zip, zip, zip. Like undo a couple of bolts, pull those plastic covers off, and then better airflow, better aero too.
I want you guys to know something. I hate to interrupt this this interview here. So I came up with that design because Alan Claffey and I were at a autocross in Boston, or north of Boston, right? Whoa. When he went back to visit. So there's a site called Devon's, and it's right at a police training academy. And then right over there, there's a sound limit. So the loudest sound cannot exceed 93 dB, or else they throw you out immediately.
Oh.
Right? So I drove Mike's current car now. After I put it on the supercharger with the hood thing open, and then I tripped the sound, they threw me out. Not because of my exhaust, it's because of my supercharger.
Your engine coming out the engine bay.
That's right. The swishing sound exceeded 75 dB 50 feet away. So they threw me out.
Ouch.
Right? So therefore, I went to Home Depot. I bought a large sheet of Lexan. I cut everything together, and I made the provisions on the existing hood vents to actually put the thing over, right?
What did you say you bought from the Home Depot?
They're Lexan, not plastic.
It's not plastic? You're telling me that's not plastic?
It's Lexan. Lexan.
You're looking me dead in the eye, and you're telling me that plastic on his car is not plastic.
Yes. So anyway.
It's high performance plastic.
The only reason I'm taking up so much time this is right now, if you go to Veris Engineering, right, just go look at their ND catalog. They made a hood van, right? They also took two pieces of Lexan to cover on top of their thing, and they sell them for over $100.
No way.
Yes.
They
stole my idea.
They stole your idea. That's what it sounds like.
That's
wow.
Right. I made that thing 3 years ago.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
That's right. Boom.
You should probably get royalties. I feel like that's
Definitely.
how that works, right?
Definitely.
Royalties come, yeah.
Exactly. A free wang. All right, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're great.
No, that's great. That's a little tidbit of history I did not know about the car. That's awesome.
That's great. That's great. Well, Mike, before we finish this, is there anything you'd like to say or shout out as our new autocross friend?
I'm just excited to be on the podcast. I'm excited that you guys are doing this podcast. I've really enjoyed episode 0 and episode 1. looking forward to this one and the future episodes, because autocross is a lot of fun, and we're in such kind of like a broad community, a lot of different clubs in the DC area, which is great. And I think it's exciting that there's that connection, right? This is one of those connecting pieces between the different clubs and the different groups participating. And
we're trying
I love
to
it.
connect everyone, and we're trying to share information that's accurate and in a fun way. So that's our goal.
Yeah, right on.
All right. And thank you so much, Mike, for gracing our podcast. By the way, if this whole podcast thing fails, please remember it's all Mike's fault, because he's the one that got us to do this. Thank you again, Mike.
100%.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, this concludes our regular programming. Everybody can be excused now, except for the novices. Our novice meeting starts now.
For this novice meeting, we are going to continue our discussion for now. You are at the event. What do you do?
All right, so we got hold of Brian. We didn't let him go.
Yeah.
Right. So now you have three people with a combined expertise of probably 100 years of autocrossing. Right. It would be
minimum
18 years for me, 12 years for Ada, 70 years for Brian. So.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know how you got to that 100.
Hey, look,
We're so good at
I'm
math.
an Asian guy. I can do math. That's all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's about anything I can do.
Okay.
Right.
It must be right then. So I must
Don't
be,
even question
It
it.
is right.
I must.
Don't even
That makes me about 100 years old.
That's right. That's right. You start autocrossing when you're 71. So no, just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, great. Awesome. So now the previous two segments that we talked about, for the novice meetings, we talked about how do you register for the events. And then we talk about we have to bring, at home, right? So now you're finally on site, right? So so this is going to apply to all the sites, but let's talk about a generic site and Summit Point Raceway, right? Because it's a little bit different. So so I can start sharing first. So when you arrive at Summit Point, you're going to have to sign a waiver at the gate, right? And at the gate, once you signed your waiver, you have to tell them which organizations you're from, and then be a little precise, because there could be 3 or 4 different organizations running at Summit Point at the same time. So mention.
Right. And to be clear, the reason you're mentioning Summit Point is because you enter a big facility that has a gate, and then when you enter your club's event, you might have somebody else asking you to sign something at that specific event.
So there are definitely 2 waivers you have to sign at Summit Point, but for most of the other locations, it will most likely be a single waiver for whatever that location is, right? So once you signed your waiver at Summit Point or at any place, you're going to drive on to the event, and then some events you have to sign a waiver as you enter the gate, and then some events you signed your waiver at registration, right? So but the next important thing is you get there and find a place to park, right? And that's what we call a paddock, right? So you find a paddock space, park your car, right? And Ada, what do we do next?
Right off the bat, I like to get out of the car and start prepping it for racing. And what that means for me is I put my painter's tape and I'll write my numbers on the side, and I'll take everything out of the car, or if I have magnets, which I used to have magnets on the S2000, I would put the magnets on the side of the car, and I would start taking everything out of the car. That's the first thing I do after a couple of bro hugs and, a couple of like little butt squeezes and stuff like that, and the normal stuff. Act like you don't know. And so you say hi, but you want to get ready to register at tech, right?
I think that's important. I think that's important to mention too. Is the fact that you get that stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
Because especially, I mean, you're new. If you're new, maybe you don't quite have that community yet that you're going to have.
Yeah.
But as you get more and more established, you're going to have all these people that you're going to want to say hi to, and it's going to be so great to see people. So I think it's really important that you mention that. Let's just get that stuff out of the way. Make sure you're set, and then you got the car ready.
Yeah, because you don't want to be that guy holding up line or late to registration, late to tech. You want to do those things immediately so you can have fun the whole rest of the day. Exactly. So I even take out everything. So like at my house, I leave my floor mats at my house, but like everything that I bring to the race, like the stuff we talked about last novice meeting, like the air pressure gauge and all of the other tools, like if you wanted to bring a few tools for some adjustments or whatever, everything comes out of the car. The numbers go on the car. The helmet's ready to be teched. And then you figure out where tech is, right? Usually you'll be able to tell there'll be a line of cars or some really handsome looking tech people that are standing around. Usually you'll be able to tell. And if you can't tell, it's okay to ask, hey, where's tech? hey, where's registration?
Anybody around you. Yeah, everybody
Everyone's
around
going to
you.
help you.
Somebody else in the paddock spot
Yep.
next to you or wherever. You can
Exactly.
ask somebody. Most people are going to be very willing to help
They will.
a first-timer. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, then, of course, at the same time, once you unload everything off your car, you got to think about where it's going to go. So if you don't have one of those big plastic bins that can hold everything, remember the advice that we come up with and bring a huge trash bag. That's the time you put everything in that trash bag, right? Because if you don't, two things will happen. If it rains, everything will get wet, right? And I'll give you some special tips, right? In some of the sites,
Danny's special tips.
at some of the sites, even though it's all asphalt, right? There will be some kind of red mites will be popping off the ground and then crawling all over the place.
Bugs, yeah.
Right? There could be some bugs and parasites or whatever. So make sure that everything is tight. And when you leave, make sure when you pick up your stuff and just go look at the bottom and wipe all of that stuff off. So otherwise, you would bring all that stuff home, right? So
Danny, you just reminded me, last event, I found Tyler's 2 tire blankets because they had blown away. They just blown away. They were like a half mile away from where his car was, and I found them, and I walked them over. So if you have something that might blow away, please, keep that under wraps as well.
Let me jump back real quick, too. You started to say something before, Atta, about, and I know you guys touched on this stuff before, but don't bring the things that you don't need.
Yeah.
Because that's just more stuff you have to put in the bag, right? You said, oh, I leave certain things at home. Yeah, there's no reason to have it. There's no reason to have it at the event. Don't bring it because it's just more stuff that you got to protect with that bag or that bin or whatever. And you can maybe carry a smaller bin because of it.
And it's gonna fly away.
yeah, there will be. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is that we need to head out to registration, right?
Yeah.
So there are a few events like the Washington D.C. region events. They would streamline it and put registration and tech together, right? And so are the PCA Potomac events. But there are definitely other events. I would say the Mercedes events and the PCA Chesapeake events. In the BMW events, the registration and tech are separate, right? So I would definitely recommend once you got everything ready, make sure you have plenty of time, go to registration, and then a majority of the registration, registrars or the person that's taking you in and checking you in, most likely will ask for some form of identification, right? Since everybody already registered and paid online, and then just follow their instructions on what to do. They usually tell you what your work assignment is and all of that stuff with some groups. And then some groups will give you work assignments a little bit later.
I want to mention that as all this is going on, that some clubs have somebody who is dedicated for novices. For this moment when you arrive and you don't know what's going on or you're having trouble, ask if there's somebody there for novices. And if there isn't, even still, make sure you tell people. I've always told novices, don't be afraid to tell people, I don't know what I'm doing, because people will be glad to help you. We could get into that later about what you do as you pull up to the course and things like that. But the point is, letting people know you're a novice is a good thing. Nobody's going to have a problem with it, and they're all going to be much more willing to help you. So if you're not sure how the club does that registration and tech, whether it's together or separate, or what times it happens and that sort of thing, just ask and just say, I'm new here, I've never done it before, or this is only my second time, I don't remember, or first time with this club. That's really important to let people know where you stand, so they know how much they can help you.
All right. So one of the things that we're going to do after registration is go into tech. Now, this is the time that you have to jump in your car and basically drive your car to the tech inspection line. And believe it or not, this is how we're going to end this episode. In our next novice meeting, we're going to start talking about tech inspection. And then, what's needed to go to tech inspection. And that's probably something that you have to do a little bit of work at home first, making sure that certain things are done correctly. So instead of running into that for this particular episode, we're going to move to the next episode, and we're going to talk about how to pass tech inspection. All right?
Danny, can we bring like a mechanical friend on for that?
Mechanical friend? You mean like Brian?
Anyone who's mechanical, yeah.
Then that's not Brian.
That's not Brian.
Just kidding.
We can laugh and joke because I feel like the three of us combined to almost make a mechanical person.
Almost.
I would say that's legitimate. more you and Danny than
More
me.
Danny.
I'm Matt. You're Kennick, and then Brian's Nickel. No, mechanical. All three of us.
Oh my God, that's what you were trying.
That's
to
weak.
I just tell people I'm Cole Trickle.
Oh yeah. All right.
I'm just a driver.
All right. So on that note, this wrap up our third episode of the DMV Autocross Podcast. Thank you for spending the last half an hour plus a little bit more with us, and thank you to our special guest Brian.
Special guest.
We again hope you find this a podcast informative and fun.
And don't forget to join us for the next episode. Until then, keep those tires on the track and that wing in the back.
All right. See you next time.